Hey Zaka family! Zaka is launching an exclusive membership platform to provide you with career development workshops, coaching, community, and so much more. Go to ZakaConnect.com and sign up to receive information on how to access early registration and perks. Hello, everybody. This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you can get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is Alex Labidou, who is Director of Social Media Experience at National MS Society. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. This has been
Ooh.
awesome.
Oh, it's going to be a pleasure for us this evening to kind of dive in and talk about your journey and where you're from. You know, I want to definitely hear about some of those companies that you work for. On your bio is definitely very impressive. But before we get into that, and we give the listeners a little bit more understanding of your cultural background and where you're from.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Brooklyn. I grew up in New York. I
Okay.
think the experience of most New Yorkers is that you probably bounce around from borough to borough, but I claim Brooklyn.
Okay, BK. I'm from the Bronx, you know what I'm
BK.
saying? But you know, BK Bronx, I got you.
I grew up in Fort Greene. I am half Haitian, half Indian. My mom is Haitian and my dad is Indian. I consider myself to be Haitian because that's mainly where I grew up in a single parent household. And yeah, other than that, like being Haitian has certainly shaped my identity growing up. Greg is on the call too, and obviously being able to connect with fellow Haitians around the world is just so key. So yeah, very proud to be Haitian.
Okay. Now, I know when it comes down to a place like Haiti, like what could you speak on and tell us like what makes Haiti so special to you? And like the culture? Is it the food? Is it the music? Is it the community? What is something about the Haitian community?
Am I being PC if I say all of the above?
Okay. Shout out to the Haitian community.
Listen. I'm a little biased, but I think if you're Haitian, it's really three things. It's like one, you come in and you're an underdog immediately. Like I remember as a kid going to high school and being like, I'm Haitian, and people would be like, you're Asian?
Oh wow.
People don't even know where Haiti is on the map. So I think a lot of times just educating people on Haiti and sort of saying, hey, listen, like, we were the first country in the Western Hemisphere to break free of slavery, and we accomplished so many things historically. I think that's great, and it's powerful, and when you see, despite Haiti being one of the most poorest countries in the world, the success stories of Haiti, it's all down to that lineage and that sort of pride in the tradition.
And you're definitely a part of that, as we're gonna get into this a little bit later on.
Maybe.
Now,
I'm just kidding.
your childhood, like, talk to me. Like, what inspired you to be the person that you are today?
In terms of
Like
human
growing up,
being
like
Alex Labidou or work
who?
Labidou?
I would say individuals, that inspired you to be the person that you are today.
I would say that my mom has probably got to be my biggest inspiration. Again, single parent. She was a fashion designer for a very long time, probably over, I want to say 4 or 5 decades. Working with major companies like Macy's and J.C. Penney, and I'm sure that there's a ton of stuff. She inspired me every day. She used to travel around the world to get insights on fabrics and designs and all these type of things. And she'd come back and she'd always bring back gifts from like London or Asia and things like that. And that really inspired me. And I'll never forget, she was on QVC one day, and like I was like, wow, like a family member is on TV. This is crazy. And I think all of y'all will laugh at this, but if you're Haitian, there's only really three professions you're allowed to do.
Okay, let me know. Come on, break it down to us now. We need to know what the three
There's
are.
doctor, there's engineer, and there's architect.
Okay.
And she was super successful doing something that, initially when she pursued, no one was really backing her on. So for me, it just showed me that I could kind of follow in that same path and maybe do something in the entertainment business and kind of really go and pursue my passions.
Now, pursuing the passion, I know that you have a passion for social media. Like, is that something you always wanted to do as a child, or was that, how'd you get that interest, grow that interest?
I would say that first of all, social media didn't even exist when we were.
That is true. I mean, there was
Unless
probably
I don't
Black
know.
Planet, Mi Gente, or something. One of those things.
I'm dating myself, so
Well,
definitely who was around when I was a kid was probably like, what was it? I don't
AOL.
know.
Hey,
Not
you
even
had
like.
that was your profile.
I did have an AOL profile. Shout out to DeLone Gun. No, but no. I have always had a passion about storytelling. Um, from a kid growing up reading books, I knew from a very early age I wanted to write and tell stories and connect with communities. I remember as a kid I was really into science fiction, and then one day I was in high school, and there were a bunch of fellows just debating about sports, and I'm like, I want to get in this conversation. Like, I really want to know like what they're talking about. So I started watching like Jets and Knicks games. Bad choices of teams, but I started
Wow.
watching it.
Call him out.
What?
I said, wow, call him out right now. Bad choices of teams.
And I grew up a Yankees fan, so
Okay. Yeah, okay.
so that's my blessing there. But anyway, I really wanted to engage in that, so I really started thinking about sports, and eventually through a lot of things, I kind of realized like I really want to be a sports journalist. And
Mhm.
I think right now the next evolution of storytelling from writing is social media. It really
Mhm, mhm.
kind of blends all of those things together. You get to connect with communities, you get to tell stories. You have to be just as efficient with your writing as you are in terms of writing a story, and you get to help brands sort of communicate and help reach their audience in new and fun and exciting ways. So
Mhm.
I think obviously I could not have known or predicted that social media was ever going to be in my future, but I think everything I've done to that point had led me into it, and it was a natural sort of progression.
Mhm, mhm. Now, is that when you obviously went out to college and stuff, you majored in
Mhm.
English? Is that how that the reason why you went into that? Because you love storytelling?
So a little bit about me is, I was trying to figure out things in college. There was a time where I even dabbled into the Haitian trio of considering to go into medicine, and I just could not foresee myself doing it. I tried everything, and why I really value platforms like what you guys are trying to do is what really turned my life around was finding the right mentors. You know, I was playing basketball one day when I was in my junior year of college, and I was still trying to figure it out. And there was a writer, his name was Kevin Powell, who some of you might know from Real World, some of you might know from his books. But we were playing ball, and he was like, "Well, what are you trying to do?" And I was like, "I really want to write, but like, I just don't see a value in it. Like I don't know how I would make money in this." And he just kind of said, like, "Dude, like, if I showed you how much I make off of speeches and writing and all of this stuff, you'd be shocked and amazed." And I was like, really? And he took me out to lunches. We went to some of his events, and I really sort of started learning a lot of that from there. And I met a lot of great mentors along the way, whether it be Bill Rhoden from the New York Times, Mark Spears from ESPN, some college professors that I had later on in my time at college. That all really shaped me. And then I sort of started developing a little bit of a swagger and being like, hey, I'm just going to go for writing and chase this
Mhm.
dream. And it worked out.
And when you after graduating college, like what were some of the obstacles you faced?
Not making any money. Is
Because I was
that?
going to say, I know that you're saying that was like a debate. You were like, "Wait, how can I make money?" Was that an obstacle you faced when you graduated?
So when I first graduated, I got lucky. The NBA had interviewed me for a writing job, and I was like, man, this is going to be great. This is going to be so easy. But as you learn in corporate spaces, things aren't always as they're pitched or promised, And
Mhm.
initially, they had put me onto a video editing gig, and this was just not me again. And I just kept on saying, like, I got to pursue me. So I did take a step back from the cushy corporate role. Then I kind of jumped into the newspaper business for a little bit, covering high school and getting more comfortable with my craft. But I bounced around a lot, man. Like, there were 3 years where I didn't write at all. And
Wow.
I was doing like random odd jobs just to stay afloat. Like I was working for political campaigns as a canvasser. I was volunteering at random places. I was doing just random odd jobs to keep the dream going. But for some reason, I never took it as a sign as like I'm not capable. I just looked at it as like my time isn't up yet. My time isn't here yet. And
Mm-hmm.
once I did get opportunities to freelance and move up, that's where I just seized the moment and I went for it.
Now, do most writers freelance, or are they employed by a certain type of company?
I'll say this. Um, you know, First of all, to even be a freelancer that's trusted by a major publication, that in and of itself takes a lot of work. Like that takes a hustle in and of itself because think about this, right? When you go to a bar or a restaurant or an outing with your friends and you talk about sports, how much can you debate? Let me ask you, how much do you debate about sports, Paul?
On a regular basis, not as much as I would like. But when I'm at a table and we're sitting down, we have a conversation, we talk about, it stays on one topic. And a lot of times it's like, who's a better player?
Yeah, exactly. So picture how many people would love to do that on a day-to-day basis and get paid for it.
Well, that'd be nice. That'd be a really good
Exactly, right?
profession.
Like
Yeah.
how many people would love to have Stephen A's job making 15 million a year?
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing all the stats and breaking those things down, I think that truly helps the conversation because numbers don't lie at that point in time.
Yeah, so going back to my question is it's kind of like there are a ton of people who come out of college and is like, I could do that easily, right? And they're all pushing for the same thing. So to even get to the freelance level is hard, right? But then after that, when you freelance, you got to be on your P's and Q's because if you mess up, they'll just say, hey, there's other freelancers we can use.
That's
So
true.
for me, a lot of what I did when I was doing all those odd jobs and everything that I mentioned before is I worked for free. I would literally call up places and be like, yo, like I got this in. Give me a chance and let me get a clip with y'all and let's do it. And that's what eventually started building my reputation and my following and all of that stuff like that. And then that's what ultimately led me to getting bigger and better opportunities where I could either be full time or get higher paying freelance gigs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, you talk a little bit more about your career starting with the NBA, right?
Hmm.
Can you tell us about like that experience and like what were some of the things that you enjoyed or some of the hardships within that?
Which time at the NBA? Because I've been at the NBA like 3 or 4 spells. Are you talking about the first time
I wouldn't
or
say the first because obviously we're working for the NBA on the first time. Like that, let's talk about that one because that's like a dream for some people. They're like, oh my gosh, I get to work for the NBA. So what was like some of the goods and the bads of that?
because I wasn't doing what I wanted to do at that stage. And first of all, I think too like everything is a teaching moment. Like I was fresh out of college. I had big dreams, and they weren't exactly how I expected it to be. So I will fully admit, like when I first started, I was unhappy. I just kind of felt that this wasn't driving with what I thought it would be. Um, I'll be honest, like part of the reason why I went into soccer was because I wanted to break away from the NBA in the sense of like I was around it all the time that I was like, let me get into another sport that I know I'll never cover. And then ironically, that was where my big break was covering soccer for
Mm-hmm.
8 years. Yeah. So I think the lesson that I learned is that sometimes you just have to be able to reframe things and see opportunity, and also just realize like always be willing to sort of stick to your gut, stick to your passion, and pursue the things that you really want to pursue.
Mm-hmm. Now, in regards to the things that you want to pursue, I know that you manage and contributed to some cool companies. You talked about the NBA. I know ESPN,
Hmm.
MLS, NBCU, Brooklyn Nets. As a black man, and what would you say to young writers who love sports and want to follow in your path?
Oh, yeah, it's a good one. I think, again, it comes down to a few things. I think, one, if your name is on it, you've got to have the absolute utmost pride in what you're doing. A lot of people, they look at things and they go like, oh, this is beneath me, or, oh, why am I not doing this versus this? It's like, if your name and byline is on something, like, give it 100% and 10%, even if it's something as simple as like, they're asking you to cover a dog show in Long Island. Because trust me, I've had to do that. Maybe not dog show, but like maybe like
It'd be the
I've
most
had to
random stuff.
cover.
I get you.
Yeah, I've had to cover like random high school games in Long Island, and some people look at that and be like, hey, like, I'm not doing that. I'm going straight for the pros, and it's like, that's great, but like, every opportunity that you get is a chance for you to perfect your craft and get better. And I've seen a lot of people who've been given fast starts who've burned out really quickly because they didn't take the chance to really learn on the field and perfect their craft. So for me, if your name is on it, represent yourself in the way that you want others to see you and respect you. Number two, be willing to accept rejection. I talk about my wife. I talk to my wife about this all the time. Like, I can go in my inbox and see something like 6,000 rejections.
Mm-hmm.
6,000.
Oh, wow. You're like, oh.
Everyone looks at like ESPN, Goal.com, all of these other places, and they go, oh, that's great. But it's like, like, true story with ESPN, I was rejected 3 or 4 times before I worked there. So just be willing to accept the fact that maybe this is not your moment at the time, but it doesn't mean that it's never. It's just a no for now.
And I think that I'm glad you mentioned that because, a lot of our guests have talked about like the word rejection and, inclining up that ladder. It's something that you have to get comfortable with. That, you're not going to get a lot of those yeses at first. And sometimes even when you are getting a lot of those yeses, you're still going to get those no's. So it just goes to show that when you're destined for something, you work for it.
Yep.
Now, I want to know, where does this passion for sports come from? Like, you've touched on a lot of great things when it comes to sports, but like, what's the passion? Like, who inspired you, or was it something in your childhood? Like, how did you get involved in sports?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about just in high school. That was like the conversation. It was like, if you didn't know what the Knicks score was last night, no one was talking to you. So for me, like, that's where it started. But then once I started watching, I got hooked. And there's so many nuances to sports, especially like, I'll be full disclaimer here. Like, I love the NBA. I love football, but my favorite sport by far is soccer. Because it's a chess match, and it's all about the pieces you have. And like, for me, I love being able to watch a La Liga game and see that they're playing in a certain style and form, and then watch an English league game and it's completely different. And that excites me. And even just seeing what's going on with MLS now with the new Apple deal and all that stuff, like,
Mhm.
it's great to see. So for me, I just love the passion, the energy, the community that it builds, all of that, the personalities. I have covered some of the most unique people I will ever who I'll ever meet in my entire life, whether it be coaches or star players, and all of that is due to like my relentlessness to keep going and to keep on trying to learn new things about new people, and that's been a lot of fun.
Mm. Now, with you mentioned the word fun, like, what's been like one of the most proudest moments in your career so far?
I think it would be two. I think it would be, obviously, um, actually, I have probably three, sadly.
Nah, hey, look, you doing it, so you better enjoy it.
um, I think, obviously, interviewing Pele for 45 minutes.
Wow, that's
You know,
big.
yeah. I mean, if you're a Haitian kid, your
That's
parents
big.
have talked to you about Pele
That's like a
ad
legend.
nauseam.
It's like a god in the game. Yeah, look,
Half of the reason why Haitians are Brazilian fans are because of the
uh,
fact that Pele played, and
45 minutes. That's a lot.
looked and looked like them. So I think that, and the greatest thing about Pele was he was just so gracious with his time. I mean, arguably the greatest player of all time. I mean, now with Messi winning the World Cup, you can have that debate, which was non-existent beforehand. But so gracious with his time. He initially thought I was Brazilian, so he was trying to talk to me in Portuguese. Uh,
Oh,
and he was
wow.
just so funny and so not what I expected at all, just very comfortable with himself and very insightful and very just a joy to be around. That to me was obviously a real highlight. I mean, and I've interviewed people like Ronaldo. I've had conversation with Kobe. I've interviewed
Mm.
Nikola Jokic during his MVP season. But yeah, Pele for me, that's a no-brainer. In regards to accomplishments, I would say that either getting to ESPN on the third or fourth time after all those interviews was really cool. Or my first invitation to be on CNN and talk about soccer. That was really cool as well.
Well, shout out to Pele. Rest in peace to the homie himself.
Yep.
He's impacted the world in so many great ways. And it was bigger than just soccer. So when any athlete could take their passion past the field into the homes and the lives of so many other people around the world, I think that's you've reached a very high level. So the fact that you were able to have a moment in time and have that conversation is amazing. I always love hearing stories of like athletes like that. We read about those in books sometimes. We're like, oh my gosh, back in the Greeks and the Romans, there was this athlete that was able to do this. But we live amongst people that are just that good. So years from now, they're gonna be talking about Pele. Now,
Yeah.
what's been like the hardest part about being a writer, and how do you like deal with that?
I think the hardest part about being a writer is a few things. I think that let's start at the rejection part. I think that's not for everyone. I've seen people who they've gotten rejected, a few times, and they're just like, yeah, I just can't do this anymore. So that's tough. I also think there's that inner paranoia that you go through. Like, is this good enough? Like, I've rewritten stories multiple times just because of the fact that I wasn't happy with it. And
Mhm.
sometimes it would have been better for me to just stick with what I originally wrote. So I think that you definitely get into your head a lot as a writer. I think the other thing too is the rejection doesn't just come from jobs. It comes from the players you're trying to talk to. It comes from the agents and the coaches you're trying to talk to. And and even sometimes you write something that everyone said that they were good with from a sense of like the answers that they gave questions to, the direction of the story, and then you get a crazy call at 2 a.m. in the morning like, this is not what I meant.
You know,
So you deal
you're
with
like, no.
you deal with all of that. But the thing about being a journalist is you got to stick to what got you into that place in the first place, and that's your ability to be trustworthy and to stick to the facts that and that you're able to represent. So I think that's key. And also, the other thing, quite honestly, is I think people. I don't want to say everyone, but I think we're all shifting as a society to visual mediums. So
Mm.
competing with that, like competing with TikTok, right? Competing with all of that, I think that's key too. Yeah.
Now, yeah, I want to ask this question right here is something I've been thinking about as we're talking. Do you have any advice for like sports media now? Now that you're covering like black professional athletes, it seems there's always like a big disconnect between the media and like black pro athletes.
That's a really good question. I'm going to give you a two-part answer for that. Some of it is obvious. I think some of it just needs to be more representation across the board of black journalists. I remember when I first started covering the NBA, there were probably 3 or 4 black journalists on the entire NBA beat. So there was a lack of representation in the stories. You could feel that. And that's almost about 20 years ago. Wow, I dated myself there. But
We
yeah.
edited it out. We edited it. We edited it.
But like, you see the rise of black journalists across the board, and and the stories are different now. They're a lot
Mm.
different. So I think that there needs to be a continual focus on hiring not only black journalists, but Black decision makers, Black editors, Black leading producers, Black CEOs of media companies. I think that that's all really key, and that's the only way that you're really going to break the tide of having one-sided representation.
Now, I recently saw your article about Haitian's most accomplished player on the Racquet magazine, right? How did that come
Yeah.
about? And how could you speak a little bit more about like the cultural pride and how did you feel about when writing that piece?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really like a major secret, but I'm related to Naomi Osaka and Mary Osaka, and they're my cousins, and I have a really close relationship with their parents. We talk pretty frequently, um, they were offered, Naomi and Mary, to guest edit Racquet, which is a great tennis publication. For anyone who hasn't checked it out, they do a lot of great work editorially, and just the quality of imaging and everything like that is just off the charts. They really felt that they needed a Haitian writer to tell the story of Ronald Agénor. And for me, when they asked if I would be interested, I said, hell yeah. So, and it was really cool to talk to Ronald for that story. And to be honest, we've kept in touch after. So that's been really great too.
Mm. Now, for the audience who didn't read the article, could you tell us a little summary about why was it important for you to write it?
Yeah, for me, I think it was a few things. One, the whole magazine was just educating people about Haitian and Japanese culture, because obviously Naomi and Mary are half Haitian, half Japanese, and you know, for me, I saw it not as only an opportunity to educate people on Ronald, it was also an opportunity to educate people on Haiti. So I took that opportunity to sort of tie the two together and explain that the fire that Ronald had, because he was a fiery tennis player. I don't know if you've ever seen highlights of him, but he's a fiery dude, and he used to wear very flamboyant outfits and be, like his hair was always impeccable. That sort of pride that came from him growing up in Haiti, and him really caring about Haiti and representing it in the right way. So that was kind of the impetus behind that.
Okay. Now, when it comes to digital strategies and a
Mhm.
writer, you're for the Denver Nuggets. Can you describe your experience there?
Yeah,
Like
I mean, that's
and
what
like
brought
some
me
of the
out to.
lessons that you know what I'm saying that you Denver Nuggets, the Denver Nuggets. I mean, I know you from Brooklyn and you out there with the Denver Nuggets. Can you talk a little bit more about like the valuable lessons you learned by doing that?
So I've worked for obviously sport media outlets. I've worked for two teams, the Nets and the Nuggets. I had a longer time with the Nuggets, so I might be slightly more biased here, I will admit. But what I didn't realize before working for teams, and especially working for two teams, is that they all operate in very different universes. You know, the Nets, an incredibly successful franchise over the past few years. They run more like a corporate company. They're very buttoned up. You go to events, you go to their practice complex, and it's like everything's to the nines. Everything is high budget. Everything is flashy. Everything is kind of made to represent New York and Brooklyn. Brooklyn is
Mm-hmm.
obviously a selling point of its own.
Yeah.
With the Nets, I felt that it was more of a family-run organization, and it was very sorely, Stan Kroenke and his son Josh run the team, and you could feel that sort of family feel even to the front office level, and sort of the approachability of people who you worked with there. Before Tim Connolly left and before I left, Tim used to be Tim Connolly, who's now, by the way, he was the president of the basketball operations at the Nuggets, and now he's the president of the operations at the Minnesota Timberwolves. Tim used
Mm.
to be a really great resource in terms of just educating me on how he operated and how the city operated and why certain things were important to him. The PR staff led by Nick O'Hare did a great job of really communicating expectations. We had a great marketing team with Declan and Jared and my former boss, Nick Birdsong. And it was just a completely different experience for me, you know, coming from Brooklyn, fast paced, everything's moving really quickly, to Denver, which is obviously a city, but it operates a little bit slower. But it was great. I think what I really learned with the Nuggets is how to build a successful team. And I know that they haven't won a title yet, but there's no doubting that they're a contender this year. You know, not to bash on my hometown Knicks, but sometimes you don't know what the plans are.
Get Derrick Rose to be not injured. That's probably what the plan is. That's the plan.
I mean, Jalen Brunson's been a hell of a pickup for them, but going back to the Nuggets, just seeing that patience, because a lot of these bigger market teams, they don't have that patience. They operate literally as this year is everything, or we have to blow it up again and try something different. So to see the patience that they had in a guy like Nikola and letting him really, you know, work on his game and become the imposing force that he is today, seeing a guy like Jamal Murray, who was on fire during the bubble and is starting to look at his best, taking a chance with MPJ and being patient with his recovery. You know, there are so many names I could list, and that's all due to that culture that they have at the Nuggets. So incredibly grateful to have worked there for 3 seasons. I still have a lot of great relationships within that team, and yeah, it's
That's
just a great place
amazing.
to
And
be.
it's amazing that you mentioned about the relationships. I think that's a very again have emphasized about in their journey, mentorship and also relationships. Now, I know you're doing like some amazing work with the National MS Society. You
hmm
get to tell the audience a little bit more about the mission and like what do you do for them?
No, I'm happy you brought that up. Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always tried to stick to mission-driven process opportunities, and you know, just full disclosure, uh, my son has autism. He's high functioning autistic, but we were guided so much from the work that Autism Speaks does, another nonprofit, that I don't know where we would be without them. So for me, when this opportunity came at my door, and I was in a transitional period at that time, I was like, wow, I can do the same thing for families who are dealing with MS or the MS community as Autism Speaks did for me. And that's really what inspired me to take this opportunity. Since joining the team, it's just been incredible. We have a really, you know, I've worked for sports teams, I've worked for sports organizations. And I will tell you, as engaged as those audiences are, like in terms of internally, the group at the National MS Society is equally, if not more, passionate, and
Mhm.
they're really you know, their mission is to help find a cure for MS, and they're continuing to raise money to help get research and help get, you know, resources for those who need it on the MS community. So I'm
Mhm.
really grateful to be there. It's been a lot of fun, and I can't complain so far. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, anything with fun behind it in a job is always amazing. So before we conclude on our interview, I just want to say again, thank you so much for just sharing the knowledge, dropping some gems, and expressing the journey. You know, you bounced around a lot, you know, but I think every place that you've gone to, you've pulled something away from it, along with growing and developing your own self in the mix of it. Being in an industry that's so large, you know, you could definitely lose yourself at times, but you've always found a way to stay grounded, and that probably came through the mentorships and the close relationships that you did have along the way to make sure that you didn't go astray. Any last words for our audience?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say thank you for having me again. This was awesome. I think for me, you know, what's been great about all of this is I've really sort of found out myself throughout all of this. You know, like I think being a leader like I am now, I wouldn't have been ready for that probably 10 years ago. Um, but seeing what good leadership is, seeing what good cultures are, has really helped shaped me. And as much as, I definitely want to always focus on the tasks at hand, I also want members of my staff who I manage to know that I'm human. I'm human just like you, and I want to find that mutual humanity that we both have and really connect there, so that I can learn your strengths and passions. So, yeah, I've just been happy to see that development, and I just enjoy this ability to speak to my story, because hopefully it inspires someone else.
Okay. Well, Alex, I appreciate. Thank you again for just sharing your time with us. And then to the audience members, I just want to let you know, if you want to hear more inspirational stories like Alex, check us out on ZakaConnect.com. Follow our social at Zaka Connect, and follow our feed, Zaka, wherever you listen to your podcast.